Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which a madman endangered his clients/viewers and paid the price. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Endanger others, be a jerk when asked about it, then dare me to do something about it? Enjoy your newfound unemployment. Details limited because reasons. I moderate an online forum for an art form that can be rather dangerous. It's landed many people in the hospital and can cause a lot of harm to bystanders if you aren't careful and meticulous in your safety measures. It always draws a crowd, even when done by a total amateur, which unfortunately means a lot of incompetent people give it a go and get an inflated ego about it. This guy, we'll call him Jeff, landed a spot on a team working for a wealthy client that I've worked for before, and I really like the client. They're nice people, employ a lot of artists and non-artists alike, and like to keep a healthy moral image presented to the public. Since Jeff is in a niche art form, he is connected with other artists in that form who put him on this particular job. Jeff doesn't know me at all, or that I worked for the same client. Jeff posts a video of himself with claims that he's doing something that's never been done before by anyone. Not true, seen it 1,000 times, and he looks a little too close to his audience, but it's hard to tell for sure because his video quality is garbage. The forum members instantly start questioning Jeff on his apparent lack of regard for the safety of his audience. Now, any respectable artist would be open to concerns of this nature, if not for moral reasons, like for your audience to be safe from harm, then at the very least for the sake of protecting your income. What does Jeff do? Says he doesn't care that he endangered kids in his crowd. Hold the effing phone. For real? Kids going to the hospital is acceptable to you? I asked him what his client would think if they knew that he said that endangering his audience was acceptable, and I offered to tell them on his behalf. What does Jeff do now? He doubles down on his words, saying there's no way no one else ever endangered their crowd. He contacts me privately and dares me to do something, saying, see if I care. Well, that's consent if I've ever heard it. I start to screenshot his replies, all the while he just keeps letting out more rope. The icing on the cake is that before I can finish my screenshot endeavor, he tells a random foreign member she couldn't get a client even if she took her top off. Hardly the kind of thing the very religious client wants from someone representing them to the public. I type out a friendly email to the client, attach the screenshots, and send it off with a bow. I lock the thread on the forum after announcing I complied with Jeff's dare, and I leave it up for everyone to see. I never heard back from the client, but Jeff deleted his threads, and I heard through the grapevine that he no longer works for the client. I'm going to assume it's some kind of juggling act. Probably involves fire. And our second story. Bad attitude bride gets a healthy dose of unplanned karma. Years ago, my wife's friend was planning her wedding and asked my wife to be a bridesmaid. My wife agreed. The wedding was postponed because he got injured at work. Side note, he was a fireman and fell through a floor carrying a baby to safety. He broke both legs and multiple ribs. They put him in a medically induced coma because it was too painful to breathe as his ribs healed. The baby didn't have a scratch. During the postponement, my wife got pregnant. They planned the bachelorette party, and my wife told her, I'm due right around that time, so I might not be able to make it. The bride said it was fine. Then she decided she wanted a crazy F Vegas bachelorette party. My wife said she wasn't comfortable flying to Vegas and partying just moments away from delivering a baby. Baby arrives early. We did not get a congrats on your first child. My wife got the text, sweet B, now that you dumped that baggage, you can come. My wife called her and politely told her that our newborn daughter is not baggage and that she wasn't comfortable leaving a 5-day-old infant in order to party in Vegas. The bride calls my wife a wimp and a party pooper. I'm amazed that my wife didn't tell her to eat crap and disappear immediately. Later that night, she gets a text from the bride. I'm sorry, please come. Last-minute tickets only $630. Only? They were $120 a month and a half ago. We have a new baby. It's not about the ticket, it's about not leaving an infant. My wife again politely says she can't leave. Bride calls her a selfish bee and says, I knew you didn't care about me. Then it gets horrifyingly bad, and then absolutely wonderful. My wife just ignores her. My wife gets a text from the maid of honor, bride's sister. Sister says something like, I know you can't make it, but there's no need to try and spoil her bachelorette party and make her feel bad. My wife calls her up immediately and explains that the bride is being a bee. My wife says she simply wants to stay with her newborn, less than a week old. The sister says that the bride has been talking crap, saying my wife was trying to get the other bridesmaids to back out and have a party closer. Claimed my wife was name-calling. My wife told her, even if you had the party on my front lawn, I wouldn't come. I'm not leaving my baby for strippers and booze and bullcrap. Here's where it gets hazy. We think the sister told the other bridesmaids something along the lines of, bride is picky and just go along with her insanity till the wedding. OP's wife isn't talking smack. The bridesmaids start texting and calling my wife to gossip and get the scoop. My wife just keeps saying, I don't want to leave my baby. That's all I said. Well, I guess they started talking amongst themselves and found out that a couple of bridesmaids were guilted into the trip even though they couldn't afford it, and the bride made comments about them being cheap. The night they're supposed to fly out to Vegas, our doorbell rang. 6 bridesmaids showed up with diapers, baby clothes, and home-cooked meals for us. We didn't even know 2 of the bridesmaids. They ditched the bride because the bride talked crap about them too. Basically, she kept telling her sister and her cousin that all the bridesmaids were buzzkill bees. So the sister kept saying, you gotta perk up and not be such party poopers. They just decided that they weren't gonna spend 4 to 5 days with this bee bride pretending to enjoy themselves and do stuff they hated just to have her criticize them even more later. In the end, just the bride, her sister, and her cousin went to Vegas. My wife and I were disinvited from the wedding along with 2 of the bridesmaids. That was fine by us. Since my wife was pregnant, she hadn't bought her bridesmaid dress, and we were planning to give them $500 as a wedding gift. So it just saved us a crap ton of money. Bride ended up cheating on the fireman and walking out on him about 5 years later when he got hurt again because I don't want to deal with all that physical therapy and rehab bullcrap again. Fireman is a great guy and doing wonderfully with his new wife, twin boys, and twin girls now. And now we're close friends with the 2 bridesmaids who were unknown back then. Seems like everything worked out for everyone but the bride. Karma's a bee. Groom sounds like a sweet guy. Can't believe that was what he ended up with for some time. Glad he got out. And our last story. Good luck with your new business. For a while, I worked as a web designer in a small ad agency serving a very niche industry. Previously, the design team had no creative lead and were all sort of operating independently across varying clients. We decided to hire a creative director to fill that gap, and I was given the task of sorting through and giving first-round interviews to find the person who would later become my supervisor. 2 candidates in particular stood out from the rest for very different reasons. One was exceptionally talented, an all-around nice guy, and somebody who generally would have been great for the role. The other, let's call him John, had mediocre talent, came across as an insufferable, arrogant jerk, but had previous experience working within the niche industry that we serviced. He also had contacts within that industry that could lead to new business. Despite my strong recommendation to not hire John, his relationships in the industry were too compelling to our agency's leadership to pass up, and they hired him. It didn't take long before the entire company started to realize John was a huge burden. He had virtually 0 experience in anything related to digital design. Design for apps, websites, mobile, etc. were all completely and utterly beyond his grasp. But he used his position of relative power to make decisions on those projects that the entire design team refused to support, most of which came back to bite the company in the butt later. The design team hated him because fixing and working around his screw-ups became part of our daily routine. The sales team hated him because he'd claim it took him unbelievably exaggerated amounts of time to complete even the most trivial of tasks. Example, 4 days to design a business card template. So they wouldn't even assign him projects anymore. Work that was clearly his responsibility started to rapidly trickle down to the rest of the design team. We'd be working late nights 4 out of 5 days a week because all of his projects that were in danger of missing deadlines would be reassigned to us. Meanwhile, he'd be the first to walk out the door every day right at 5 p.m. without fail. On top of all that, the guy was absolutely, without a doubt, the biggest tool I've ever met. Always right about everything, completely unbending on his idiotic opinions, and completely clueless that literally every person in the building wished he would get hit by a truck. I genuinely tried to work with him for about a year until I decided that the job had become intolerable because of him, and wasn't going to change anytime soon, so I turned in my 2-week notice. About a month after I left, I heard that he'd been let go from the job. Shortly after that, I noticed that he had changed his LinkedIn status to show that he was working for a new agency I'd never heard of, also servicing that same niche industry. I looked him up and quickly figured out he had started his own agency, a primarily digital agency, when he had no experience in digital or interactive design and had literally effed up every digital interactive project he'd ever been on. I know, because most of them were reassigned to me when he proved incapable of doing them himself. I looked at the portfolio on his website and found literally project after project of my work. He was using my work from the ad agency as examples of the work his agency could produce. I briefly considered contacting him and requesting he remove my work from his portfolio for ethical reasons, but I could already hear his reply in my head: "As creative lead, all work done by my team is an extension of my creative direction." He'd used similar lines in the past to insert himself into receiving credit on successful projects he'd had zero involvement in. So instead, I sent an email to one of the partners of the agency we both had worked for, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, not sure if you've noticed this, but it looks like John is using your company's intellectual property to directly compete against you. If I had to guess, I'd assume his next step would be to make a move at your client list." The reply was short and sweet: "Thanks for bringing this to my attention. He'll be hearing from our attorney in the morning." John's website was brought down less than 24 hours later. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.